All right, everyone. A very good morning, very good evening.
Good morning, Mallikarjun.
All right, let's get started to the continuation with yesterday's class. Just to recap what we discussed in yesterday's session, we started with the course curriculum and we went ahead with a brief description about each and every topic. So you can take a look one more time here. This is about the course curriculum here. We'll start with the chapter number 1. That's environmental setup. Chapter number 2, that's for networking and DNS and DHCP setup. Chapter number 3 is installing Oracle software. Chapter number 4 and 5 is installing your database. Chapter number 6 is about architecture. We'll go in each and everything about architecture. And chapter number 7 is administration and the management of your database and database instance. And chapter number 8 is database internals. That is a logical structure of your database, segment extents and table space and many more things. Chapter number 9 is ASM and ASM disk group and ASM storage administration and ASM instance administration. Chapter number 10 is about your CDBs and PDBs, multi-tenant architecture. Chapter number 11 is networking. That's your TNS listener, TNS ping, TNS admin directory and remote connections and local connections and password file management. Chapter number 12 is user management, the permissions, roles, privileges, and quotas, and many more things. Chapter number 13, 14, 15 is about RMAN, backup, restore, recoveries, and various backup strategies, level 0, level 1, archive backup, absolute backup, expired backup, and many more things. Chapter number 17 is about upgrade, database upgradation, pre-checks, post-checks, what are the best practices, and how you can upgrade your database from 11G, 12C, 19C. And how we're going to handle your PDBs and CDBs for upgrades. Chapter number 18 is for data guard, standby database. Again, we talked more in yesterday's session. Different types of standby database, different modes of standby database, and your standby and prod sync, out of sync, and your DR drill, switchover activity, failover activity, and many more. Shell scripting for automation, we can make day-to-day activities as a automation by writing a shell scripting or Python scripting. We'll go over some of the basic shell scripting and some of the automations for your day-to-day activities here in the shell scripting. Chapter number 20 is export and import, and how can you improve your export and import, how can pause and resume your export and import, and many more things. Chapter number 21 is a new feature about 12C, 19C. If needed, we can add it 21C, 23C AI and all those things. We can try to cover it here. Chapter number 22, 23, 24 is all about your performance tuning. AWR report, ADDM report, ASH report, how to generate them, how to read them, how to interpret them, and as a best practices, how you can solve your performance tuning if the query is taking more time, how to generate your execution plan, how to read the execution plan, and then after reading the execution plan, after reading the AWR report, how to recommend your approach, your table rebuild or the gather stats or index rebuild or your table move, table shrink or your SQL profiling. And by recommending them, you can improve your query performance. And remaining all chapters are like bonus chapter, resume writing and preparations, and interview questions and answers, and the mock interview. And it's just a brief definition of what is the course curriculum here. And again, yesterday we went each and every topic in details. Hope that's clear. And again, also requested if there's any topic which is specifically you're looking or if it is not covered here, feel free to ping me. I can take a look on that and maybe I can include it. Great. Followed by we talked about the course durations, timing, fee structure. Again, this is only 2 days in a week, Monday and Tuesday in IST India time zone. and in EST time zone it will be Sunday and Monday. So 3 hours each day, 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. That's in Indian time zone. And in EST time zone, it will be late night, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m., 3 hours on Monday and 3 hours on Tuesday. And in EST, 3 hours on Sunday and 3 hours on Monday. Totally 6 hours in a week. So we'll be able to complete in 7 weeks. And since this is a paid training, it will be 10,000 Indian rupees or 125 US dollar. It will be covered based on 19th version, and classes are taken over a Zoom session, live classes. And registered student will be added to WhatsApp group, and any questions, queries, communications all will be discussed in the WhatsApp group. And also this WhatsApp group will be there for a lifetime support. You can post any questions, queries, or you have attended any interview, you can post your questions, whatever the challenging questions you faced in the interview. Or you are already working in a company and you need some help or assistance on some of the activities like RBAN backup, export, import, or user creation, or whatever the challenges you have it, and whatever the assistance needed, you can always use our WhatsApp group and you can post it over there. And again, as part of this course registration, you'll be getting access on Google Drive. I showed all these Google Drive links, how it will be. Link one will be for the course materials, PPTs, workbook, lab exercise, all will be available here. And link two will be your automation scriptings, interview preparations, questions and answers, and the softwares and other tools, whatever needed, will be shared in this link two. And link 3 is for previous batch recording, and link 4 is for the current batch recording. So whatever daily classes will be completing will be recorded and uploaded on the same day. So whenever if you miss the class, you can go back and watch that one. At the same time, we'll be getting access on the previous batch recordings. So previous batch recordings is basically if you want to complete this course within a week, you can go and then watch them on your own phase. And also if you're preparing for the interview, you can go and then watch these previous batch recordings in advance so that it will be helpful for cracking the interview. And also before attending these daily sessions, you can take a look on the previous batch recordings. You can watch them in advance and attend the live classes so that you can ask more questions during the live sessions. If you have any doubts, you can ask those questions in the actual live sessions here. All right, so and also we discussed about the minimum requirement, which is must, because without meeting this minimum requirement, if you try to register for this course, especially this hardware requirement. So you should have this much of hardware requirement, 10 GB RAM and 100 GB SSD hard disk, so that you'll be able to set up your own lab. I'll be assisting you with the lab setup. And at the same time, we already have a ready labs available on the Google Drive. Whatever this link one here, in this link one, you have already ready labs are available. You need to just download it, attach it to your virtual box. So in order to run your virtual box in your laptop or desktop, you should have minimum this much of RAM. Either you can do setup by your own, or you can use that already ready setup labs. But in either of the cases, you should have this much of RAM. Then only you can able to run your VMs and practice it. Right. So and then if you know the basics of Windows and Linux, that's well and good. If you don't know, again, you need to put some effort and then learn those things parallel along with this course so that you can able to be in sync and able to understand clearly. Otherwise, you need to watch the recordings again and again if you're lacking in this Windows and Linux and SQLs. Right. And then another important factor is who all can attend this course. Again, anyone can attend this course. You are a fresher or graduated student, or you already working experience with 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, or whatever experience. Anyone can attend because this course starts with a scratch from the beginners level. It'll go up to advanced level. Right. And then since this is a paid training, I did get some requests yesterday and I rerouted them for proper payment method. And also we received some of the students registered yesterday by making payment. I need to add them into WhatsApp group probably after today's session. I'll be adding all those registered student into WhatsApp group, and then I'll share all the details. Maybe by end of today, I can share the details. Please stand by until today. Right, and then again, if anyone has any questions or queries or anything you need to know more, feel free to ping me on this WhatsApp number or shell number here. Again, I pinged in the what in the chat here. You can take a note. You can always reach out to me any questions, queries, or if you want to register for this course, you can feel free to reach out to me on WhatsApp or cell number here. All right. Uh, and then we also talked about the certifications. We talked about the certifications for the DBA course. You will be once you complete the DBA course, you'll be working as a 1 to 4 years of experience. That's a junior DBA. We do have the other course, rack course. If you complete this rack course, you will be working as a senior DBA, anything between 5 to 10 years, 12 years of experience. And both for the DBA course, we'll be having a DBA certificate by Oracle. That's a 19C OCP certificate. For rack course, you'll be having a rack certificate, and the certificate numbers or the exam numbers are 1Z00082, 1Z00083, 19C admin 1, 19C admin 2. And for the rack, 1Z0078, 19C Oracle rack, ASM and grid and rack. So all of them are cost you around Indian rupees, 20,000 Indian rupees. So it's a one-time registration and one-time payment and one-time exam. If you fail, again you need to make one more time payment and reattempt it. So before attempting for this exam, make sure that you studied, you did a lot of hands-on experience, and you understand each and every concept, and then go for the certifications. Otherwise, for the first time attempt without proper study, you will going to end up with not clearing the exam. So you're going to
Sorry,
lose that.
sorry for my disturbance to you, Mallikarjun. Where it is available in that links? Maybe you are saying certification links. No, can we go for Udemy? Is there we have any particular URL, Mallikarjun?
In Udemy, we have a practice exam.
Okay,
So before attending this Oracle certification exams, make sure that you go to either Course Arena or Udemy or some other learning platform. That will be 1,000 or 500 rupees US Indian rupees. You buy those exams and practice those exams. And again, practice those exam meaning you need to first understand the course completely and do a hands-on your own. And once you're clear, then attempt those practice exams. Once you're comfortable, then go for actual exams by Oracle. Yeah. You can
thank
get
you.
it if you search this exam code or 19C admin 1, admin 2 or rack in Udemy, you can get the practice exams.
Okay, okay.
All right. So why these certificates are important? As I mentioned yesterday, I have applied for hundreds or thousands of you know job openings, but I never get a call. Why we never get a call? Because we don't have any certifications. If you have certifications and if you mention those certificate logos in your resume will be having a highest weightage. If anyone opens your resume, they see OCP certificate or rack certificate, then your resume will be shortlisted in the first attempt. So that's where in most of the organization, when the hiring process happens, and for a single job opening, there will be thousands or hundreds of resumes will be coming in. How that HR or the talent recruiting team will take a look of those or screen those thousands of resume, they will just open the resume and the candidate who has specified with these certificates, those resumes will be considered with the highest priority. Those resume will be get shortlisted. And if you don't have these certifications, then you are losing the weightage and your resume will not be having any weightage. And that's the reason they will not get selected. Once your resume gets selected, whatever the technical interview, whether you're going to clear that interview or you're going to fail that in the interview, it's all on your ability. How much you studied, how much you prepared, how much you practiced, and then you will be able to crack that interview. So that is in your hand. Clearing the interview or not clearing the interview, it is on your hand. That depends on your ability, how much you studied. But what is not there in your hand? whatever the positions you applied, your resume is getting shortlisted or not, which is not in your hand. To make it in control, you need to add the certifications in resume and make your resume as high weightage so that your resume will be get shortlisted for any positions you are going to apply it. Right? Once your resume is shortlisted, it will all be in your ability whether you are able to crack the interview or not. All right, that's the importance about the certificates. Again, we'll talk more in our regular classes. Once we start our classes, we'll talk about all the certifications. We'll go with more details about that exam. Right, and then followed by we started with some database concept discussion. We understood about what is standalone database versus rack database, and what is how many types in standalone database, how many types in rack. In standalone database, we have two types of databases with ASM, without ASM. In rack also, we have two types of database, rack database and rack one database. Right, that's what we discussed yesterday, and then this is a demo what I shown in my lab, and then we stopped in yesterday's session. Right, I'll take a pause here for a minute if anyone has any questions before I continue with the further topics here. Any questions, guys, so far, or any doubts or anything need to be clarified?
Sorry for my disturbance to you. First of all, Mallikarjun, can we discuss here? We have some real-time issues. Sometimes who people are not unresolvable. Can we discuss and resolve it from through this session?
Maybe we'll take it later. Right now, let's stick to what is there in this particular agenda here, right? So if I talk about some performance tuning or some upgrade issues or whatever the real-time issues, uh, many people will not be aware of that. So it's
No,
just
no. What happened? No, actually, people are supporting from Oracle and PostgreSQL both the databases from our environment. So sometimes people are having some problem from Oracle core side. So that's the reason people I am checking with you. Why means unresolved whatever the tickets we have. I am unresolving. Can we discuss here and resolve it from through this channel? It's possible.
yeah. So once you part of the course and you can ask any questions. Again, I mentioned,
Yeah. Sure, sure. Part of the course only people are checking with you, not
right, right.
behind that one.
That is always there. That's why I mentioned in WhatsApp group here. We have a dedicated WhatsApp group. It's only for the registered student. So you can post your any questions. Like as I mentioned, you attended the interview, you're not able to answer few of the critical questions. You can post all those questions. I'll take it up. Or you're already working for a company and you need some assistance, like
Yes.
in some backup failure, how to troubleshoot, how to mitigate, what are the best practices, or you are creating a user and getting errored out, or the export and imports are getting failed. So any kind of a technical assistance needed, always post it in our WhatsApp group. I'll be answering or I'll be guiding you in the right direction. All will be
Yes.
supported here.
Yes. Mostly people are suffering from a problem. We have problems refresh activity and database activity. Both we have the main
Yeah.
problem from our
Arman
environment.
backup, restores, and your migrations or upgradations or your patching, there'll be a lot of issues or a lot of questions around that. You can always use our WhatsApp group for any assistance. All right. Hope that's clear. I'll again take a pause for a minute if anyone has any questions around the course curriculum or the timings or the fee structures. If no questions, then I can continue with a few more topic discussion. Right. I'll take it as a no. So just a recap here. We discussed yesterday about standalone versus rack. A standalone versus rack, that's fair enough. So we know there are two databases in standalone with ASM, without ASM, and rack also we have two databases. One is rack database and the other one is the rack one node. So why rack? Why standalone? So why rack and why standalone? Which one is better? Simple basic questions. So if I take a look here, one of these slide, okay, this slide. So we have standalone versus rack. Let's imagine three users. User one want to connect, and he will connect via application server one. And user two, client two want to connect. He can connect with the mobile device. User three want to connect. He can connect with the desktop user. All these users connection will go to one Linux server where your database instance is running, and that will connect to your database. And let's think of this server here. This server has to serve all these three connections, and this server has overloaded. All these three users are connected to one single server, and this server will be having a lot of resource crunch, resource utilization because of the three user connection. The same way in case of rack, if it's a three node rack, you have client one, client two, client three. All these clients will connect to the respective application server. All the connection will go to that respective, not respective, that connection will go to that individual database instances, which is running on server 1, server 2, and server 3. Here, all these servers are not overloaded because each servers will be connecting only one user or 10 user or 100 users. Here, all these users are equally balanced. Let's say instead of one user, let's take 1,000 users want to connect. Let's say around 300 users are connecting from this application, 300 users connect from here, 300 users connect from here. All those 1,000 users will be served by one single server, database server, and this database server may get crash. And in case of rack, the 300 connection will go to one server, another 300 connection will go to one more server, another 300 connection will go to another server. So here that all the servers are equally load balanced. So that is one of the major criteria for rack. The load balancing is one feature where all the end user connections are equally distributed on all the database servers. They all will be accessing on the same database. And in case of one server crash happens, all these users who are connected to here, they all will be shifted to other rack nodes. The failover is the other features in case of rack. These clients, 300 clients, whatever connected here on this server one, they no need to reconnect. Automatically, their connections will be rerouted to instance 2 or instance 3. That's called failover. And if the one instance is not available, another 100 user want to connect, all these connections will go here. Like 50 connections will go here and 50 connections will go here. High availability, even though one instance is not available, another two instances will serve that new connections. In case of standalone, if one instance is not available, there's no more other instances to serve that incoming connections. So those are the three major advantages in case of your rack. In case of rack, very first thing is HA, high availability. One database server or instance is not available. You have other two instances which will handle that incoming connections. And load balancing. If the thousands users are connecting, all those thousands users are equally distributed on all your database servers. If it's a two node rack, three node rack, four node rack, the users are equally distributed based upon the type of query what they're running it. And then failover. If one database server crashed, one database instance crashed, whatever that user connected to that instance automatically failed over to your other instances. So these all are your advantages of rack over a standalone. But still, few people or few customers or end users, still they will be running with a standalone databases. Why? Licensing. Your rack versus standalone licensing is way different. So standalone licenses are very cheaper and rack licenses are costlier. So licensing is one of the important factor why people will still run the standalone databases, especially for your dev or test environments. Because you don't need to run React databases in case of dev and test. So you run your standalone database for any testing and development work. And then obviously compare them with a standalone rack. Rack is a better option. And any production and DR should run with the rack setup. So Oracle suggests something called MA architecture. So there is a best practices. So there's a best practices by Oracle that's called MA architecture, maximum availability architecture. MA stands for maximum availability architecture. So as per this best practices guide by Oracle, your prod and DR should run with a rack setup. And there are some other best practices they given in this architecture guide. We have to follow that one. So that is where most of the enterprise customer, not with a small startup businesses and all, they will not willing to go with Oracle. They will go with some free versions like PostgreSQL, MySQL, and other stuff. But any enterprise customer, so they all go with this best practices, more architecture, prod and DR. They will run with the rack setup. So that is understanding of why rack is important than the standalone. But still, standalone is our fundamental architecture. So when it comes to standalone versus rack, your whatever the architecture we are discussing and learning in this database course, that remains same even for the rack. If it's a rack, there's no different architecture. Whatever the fundamental architecture we are learning in this database course, the same architecture remains holds good for your rack database also. No difference at all. This is the standard architecture by Oracle. All right. So that is your standalone versus rack and different types of databases. And yesterday I mentioned for the rack database, we have two types of databases. If I draw them here, let's say it's a 4 node rack cluster where you will be running your ASM instance 1, ASM instance 2, and ASM instance 3, ASM instance 4. It's a 4 node rack, 4 Linux servers, and 4 ASM instance. And if you create your database, it will be having a dev database instance 1, dev database instance 2, and dev database instance 3, and dev database instance 4. Will be 4 instances. All those 4 instances are pointing to a shared storage where your dev database will be running here. That's the one type of your rack database. Another type of rack database, what I mentioned, your rack one node. So let's say test underscore one, test underscore two, and test underscore three, and then test underscore four. 4 node again rack database, but it's a one node only. Only one instance will be up and running. Let's say on this server host one, and this host two, host three, and this host 4. Only this T underscore 1, test database underscore 1 instance will be up and running. Remaining all test underscore 2, test underscore 3, test underscore 4, those instance will be down. In case of your host 1 goes down or your instance goes down, automatically any of this test underscore 2, test underscore 3, or test underscore 4, anyone will get started. That's the beauty of rack 1 node. Why rack 1 node and why customer uses this rack 1 node? That is one thing, licensing cost. Compare it then with this rack database versus rack one node database. Rack one node database license is way cheaper than the rack database. So for kind of a UAT database or kind of a reporting database, they will run with one instance and they can run the report from there. That's the purpose of rack one node in the case of rack. Right. And then is it another question comes into picture. If I have a 4 node rack setup, this is your 4 node rack setup. Can I run a 2 node rack database? Right now, in order to do this dev database setup, this test database setup, what we're going to do, fundamental thing, install Oracle software. Once you install Oracle software, this Oracle software, you need to install it on node 1, node 2, node 3, node 4. On these 4 nodes, you have to install Oracle software. Once you install Oracle software, you need to go and then create your database. All database will be started on all 4 nodes. And then you can segregate. Let's say I'm going to install Oracle software on node 1, Oracle software 1 on node 2. Only 2 nodes I'm going to install Oracle software. I can run my, let's say, UAT database 1 here, and I can run my UAT database 2 here. 2 node rack database, I can do it. And at the same time, I can install my Oracle software 2 on only 2 nodes, node 3 and node 4. Only 2 nodes I can install Oracle software. I can create my UAT database 1 and UAT database 2. 2 node rack database. Even though it's a 4 node rack cluster, but I'm going to install Oracle software only 2 nodes, and I can run my 2 node rack database. That's also possible. You can do whatever the mix match combinations. But underlining, you should have rack setup ready, and on which node you're going to install Oracle software. Those many nodes you're going to run your rack database instances. All this part of your rack, it's a 2 node rack. Even though 4 node rack cluster, you're going to run 2 node rack database. That's a different kind of customization. But underlining your database types in rack is rack database versus rack 1 node. But this kind of a customization, you can do whatever you want it. You can install Oracle software on these 3 nodes, and you can create your 3 node rack database. That's also possible. Right, so that is your different types of rack database and different types of standalone database. Standalone database I already explained in yesterday. One is running on ASM and one is running on your local file system. That's lab 1 and lab 2. That's where we are going to discuss here. We're already connected on my labs. So we have this lab 1 where my Dev database is running, and then we have this lab 2 where my test database is running. So test database is running on ASM and dev database is running on my local file system. Right. So with that, now couple of questions. How to identify where my database is residing? Where my database is residing? My database is residing, meaning on OS file system or ASM file system. So before I go into this one, let's say I'll go with the first one. How to connect to my database? I already explained this one. Or database instance. So we're gonna do this a ps-f grep smon, identify who is the owner. We'll log into that owner and we'll run this .orinv, and then we'll use SQL plus classes DBA. And after running this one, we'll verify env grep ora. By running this one, we'll verify whether we properly set up the environment or not. For my development database here, ps-f grep smon dev database instance, which is running with Oracle user. So log into that Oracle user. After login, go ahead and then run this .orinv, and it will ask you what is the SID, the instance ID, DevDB, and after that, verify whether the environmental variables are set properly. Your SID, base, and Oracle home. Once that is done, you can go ahead and then run this SQL plus SSDBA. You'll be connected to the database instance. But at the same time here, my test database, ps-f grep smon test database running with Oracle user, and again do switch user to Oracle and run this .orinv, and it's going to ask you what is the SID, and you can pass that SID, and again you can verify your environmental details which is set properly or not. and then you can connect using SQL plus SSDBA. Right, you are going to connect it to your test database here. And after that, once you're able to connect your database instances or databases, and you can identify where your database is running on ASM or OS file system by running this name from mirror data file. So anything start with the plus data, that is your ASM. Anything start with a slash, that's your OS file system. That's here my dev database, which is start with this slash. Right, that's a simple way to identify where my database is running. Right, and then once you are able to connect database and you're able to identify where your database is running, now we'll go further. How to connect to that ASM storage, how to access data files, how to access those data files or the physical location. So we identified this is my data files, the physical locations where my data files are resides. For non-ASM, using CD and you can access it. For example, here non-ASM, so I can go into the CD, ls-l, so I can see all those data files here. CD and then I'll do ls-ltr. By doing this command, I can able to access my data files, the physical location. But for ASM, for ASM storage, using ASM CMD. So we have this ASM CMD utility. Using that, you can access. So that's where the question comes, how to connect to ASM storage. Same thing, whatever we connected here will follow the same thing. Identify your ASM owner, log into that ASM owner, set the ORINV, set it to plus ASM, and run your ASM CMD -P. Same thing here on the second server here. I'm going to do the same command, a ps-f smon, which will tell my ASM is running with Oracle user. So I log into that Oracle user. Once you, okay, we already log into Oracle user, no need to log in again. And then run this .orinv. You're going to ask what is the SID. My SID is plus ASM. I want to connect to ASM. So verify that environmental variables, whether it is properly set it to your ASM or not. Plus ASM, Oracle base, Oracle home. And then you can connect your ASM CMD. And after that, you can go and then go into that CD and then do ls-ltr. You can see all those data files. Again, there are so many other options here. We'll discuss in our regular classes. So this is your way how we can access your ASM storage by navigating into that command and running this ls-ltr or ls-l. Right. And now we understood about the ASM storage, the way storage, and ASM instance, database instance, and little bit on the architecture part now. Oracle architecture. If anyone asks you, like again, I repeated yesterday multiple times. If anyone asks you about Oracle architecture or anybody asks you to brief about Oracle architecture, even in the midnight or even in any situation, as a DBA, we should be able to answer or you should be able to explain this database architecture with a clear and crisp. because that is our fundamental concept. If you don't know the architecture, then you will not be able to work or not be able to support any client. So the moment they say explain about architecture, you need to concentrate only on the database instance and database, the backend data files. You should not worry about how the end users are connects, how the password authentications are happens. That's not what they expect. If somebody asked you to explain about database architecture, we should start with the database architecture is a combination of instance and the database. Whereas here instance is a logical structure and database is a physical structure. Remember 2 points. Your Oracle architecture is a combination of instance and database. Instance is a logical structure and database is a physical structure. So your instance is a logical structure. Again, that instance is made up of memory and background process. And your database is a physical structure. Database is a physical structure which is nothing but your backend data files or the storage files or the end user data or the backend files. All these combinations will form your database. And whatever we saw here, whatever the system, sysocs, undo users, these are your data files. That's your actual database. End user data will be stored there. Same thing for dev database, whatever this system, sysocs, undo user. This is your backend data file or the database data files where the end user data will be stored. That's your physical structure where I can go here and I can see these data files. That's where we call that database as a physical structure. Physically, I can see the data files. Instance is a logical structure where we can't see it. As a DBA, I can't see this physically. That's a logical structure where my database will understand. So again, in this particular instance, which is a logical structure made up of memory and background process, that memory is again internally made up of SGA and PGA. SGA is your shared global area, PGA is your program global area. And again, this background process, combination of your mandatory background process and non-mandatory background process. Again, if I further go into each of them, this SGA in this memory structure itself, again, we have so many other sub memory component. Very first thing is your DB buffer cache and log buffer cache, your shared pool and your large pool and your Java pool and your stream pool, right? These are your sub memory component. Again, in the DB buffer cache, we have few other sub memory component. Those are your key pool, recycle pool, and also we have NK buffer pool. Each of them has its own purpose or definition or the work or the task. And again, in the shared pool, you have library cache, dictionary cache. In the shared pool itself, again, you have what is library cache? One of the entry questions. What is there inside that? What is dictionary cache and what is there inside that? What is shared pool? That's one of your entry questions. What is your log buffer cache? What's the purpose of that? What's your DB buffer cache? What's the purpose of that? What is this key pool, recycle pool, NK buffer pool? What is this large pool, Java pool, stream pool? What they will do? What's the purpose of that? One of the most commonly asked entry questions. And can you explain about SG and its all subcomponents? And again, PGA, there's so many sub memory components. Very first thing is your stack space. And again, your bitmap or bit tree area. And your sort area. and your cursor area. Right, and then again there are so many other subcomponent you can go on. The UGA is part of your PGA. User global area is part of PGA. Again, we have shared server and dedicated server. So this UGA will be part of PGA and UGA will be part of SGA based upon your whether it's a shared server or dedicated server. But these are part of your PGA sub-memory component. And what is stack space, what is bitmap, bit tree area, what is sort area, what is cursor area, and also we have temp area. What are these memory components inside PGA? Each of them has its own particular task or job. Right, and this background process, we have a mandatory background process. Mandatory background process are your SMON, system monitor, and PMON, process monitor, checkpoint, and your LGWR, log writer, your DBWR, debrighter. Again, these are mandatory processes and they have to run it. If any one of these process killed, your database instance will go down. Your PMON killed, your SMON killed, checkpoint killed, log writer killed, or debrighter killed. Any one of these background processes are killed, your instance will crash, instance will go down. So if your database instance has to run, these 5 mandatory background processes has to be up and running. And also we do have this non-mandatory background process, which are not mandatory. Even these processes are killed, they'll be automatically get started. Your archiver is one of that. Your MMON, MMNL, and your recoverer, and etc. There are so many non-mandatory background processes are there. So these are your mandatory or must interview questions if you attend any of this. Right? If you're able to explain this much when they ask about architecture and then go and then define all this, no need to give the definition of this. Just give what is there. That's enough. And further, if they wanted, they will ask what is SGA and what is Java pool, what is log buffer cache in PGA, what is sort area in mandatory background process, what is this PMON and what's the purpose, what's the job of the PMON. Checkpoint, what's the job of the checkpoint? Updating your control file and data file header with the SCN information. Again, what is SCN? System change number, when it will be generated. They'll be keep on, it will gonna keep on going. So you should be able to explain this in details whenever somebody asked about architecture. That's more than enough. It's all till here, it's all about covers your one part of your architecture, that's the instance. The other part is your database. Your database is the physical structure, the physical files, or the backend files, or the storage files. That's your data files. System, sysocs, undo, user, temp, all these are your physical files where the end user data will be stored. That's your actual database. So, meaning you have a database here. This is nothing but your data files. These data files are nothing but system, sysocs, user, undo, temp. This is your actual database because end user data will be stored here. Like client 1 want to connect? No. Client 2 want to connect? No. No end users. None of the clients, including DBA, we don't have any authority or we don't have any control to access these data files. So can I read what is the content of these data files here? No. There's no way anyone can read these data files. Only the database instance can read. That's where I mentioned here, your Oracle architecture is a combination of database and the instance. Database is your actual physical files where the end user data is stored. Nobody can able to read and understand the data file. Only that instance can read and understand those data files. And that's where logical structure will come into picture here. Instance. This instance will be combination of your memory and this is your background process. If any end users want to access the database data file, the client has to connect to instance. And then via instance, they have to access database. And then this client has to connect to database. And from that instance, they have to access the database. As a DBA, I need to connect to this instance. Via that instance, I need to access this database. If you don't have this instance, you cannot access this database. And that's where we are connecting here. I did mention here that how to connect to my database or the database instance. I need to run this SQL plus SSDBA, which is going to connect to your database instance. From this instance, you can query whatever the data which is available inside these data files. If I don't have an instance, then I will not be able to access anything. For example, I'm going to kill this one. The SMON is one of the mandatory background process. That's what we just talked here. Where is that? Mandatory background process. Your SMON is one of the mandatory background process for this DBA database instance. I'm going to kill this instance. The moment I kill this instance, your database instance is gone. Where is that diagram? Right here. Right, your database instance is gone now. Your database instance is gone. You have your database. You have all your data files. Right? If I go back here, you have all your data files. Can I able to read or access these data files? No, because you need to have that instance. You have to first connect to instance, then only you can read and write or do whatever you want it on the database. Right now your database instance is killed. Database instance is crashed. I only killed purposefully here. And once your instance is killed, this database is meaningless. These data files are meaningless. Nobody can access or nobody can read or you'll not be able to do it. If I do SQL plus SSDBA, try to connect, it says connected to idle instance, meaning instance is down. Earlier when I connected, it says connected to your enterprise database. And now it is saying connected to idle instance, meaning your instance is not running. And in order to start your instance, you can do this startup. We have different modes in startup, no mount, mount, and open. We'll talk about in regular classes. Once you start your database instance, what happens here? If we take a look here, you're gonna assign all the memory, HGA, PGA, and subcomponent of your HGA, and you're gonna mount your database and you're gonna open your database. Open your database meaning attach all the data files to that instance. Now I can do any query. I can do insert, update, delete. I can read this content of these data files, and everything works here. Right? So that's a simple definition or the understanding. And again, each of them has its own definition. We'll talk about in our regular classes. But if anyone asks you, you should be able to explain this much as part of your database architecture. Right. So again, going further, if anybody worked on any other databases like PostgreSQL, MongoDB, MySQL, SAP HANA, and MS SQL, and DB2, IBM DB2.
Yeah,
What?
Mallikarjun, I am supporting from PostgreSQL, parallel Oracle, both Mallikarjun, from our ST environment.
Got it. Got it. Now let's understand other database versus Oracle. What's the difference? SAP HANA, take it DB2 or MS SQL, MySQL, PostgreSQL, MongoDB, any other database.
This
So
Oracle is the license, no, huge license, no, compared to other databases.
licensing is fine. Architecture part.
Yeah, architecture, but maybe somewhat Oracle is the very difficult compared to other databases. For example, see in PostgreSQL, this what architecture level not this much, but Oracle is the very maybe comparison between very high. So that's the reason people are
That's correct.
uh,
So
And
the
take RAG
definition,
support.
yeah, definition will go like this. Even Postgre has a HA setup and MySQL has a HA setup, it's equivalent to your RAG setup. But the simple architecture difference here is in other database, a single instance and you can support multiple databases. Let's say I have a instance one. Inside that, I can run dev, test, UAT, prod databases. Multiple databases, I can run it. Let's say I have a MS SQL instance one, and inside that, I can run multiple databases. And if I run SAP HANA instance one, inside that, I can run multiple databases. If I manage one instance and underlying all databases will be managed, I no need to individually manage my individual databases. If I have my PostgreSQL instance, if I manage my instance and underlining if they have multiple databases, all will be automatically managed. But whereas Oracle, it's not like with one instance you can manage multiple databases. No, it's a single instance and single database. You have a DevDB database, you should have a DevDB instance. You have a TestDB database, you should have TestDB instance. You have a UAT database, you should have UAT instance. So it's always one-to-one mapping. Oracle will always follow that one instance to manage one database. In case of RAC, you can run multiple instances to manage the single database. But with one instance, you cannot run multiple databases. And that's where there's a little bit challenges. And that's where Oracle is started with the multi-tenant architecture. How can we align with the other database architecture? This is other database architecture. They're gonna able to manage one single instance with the multiple databases inside that. So how can we, Oracle, can support this kind of architecture? That's where they started with this multi-tenant architecture with a single instance, run a single database called CDB. Inside that single database, you can run your virtual database, kind of a PDBs, to align your other database architecture. Right now, your instance one, and you can run your one database called CDB database. And inside that CDB database, you can run your multiple databases as a virtual databases. Like you dev, test, UAT, prod, all of them you can maintain inside CDB. In this case here, if you manage your CDB database, underlying all your PDB database will be managed. In case of your other database here, if you manage that particular instance, underlying all database will be managed. So that is the reason behind why this multi-tenant architecture is came in. And I clearly told in yesterday's session, 21C onwards, it's all about multi-tenant architecture. There's no more normal database architecture. We all will be going towards this multi-tenant architecture, which is aligning with the other database architecture. Right. So little bit on this multi-tenant architecture. Let's talk about your older version 7i, 8i, 9i, 10G, 11G, which used to support normal database architecture. There's no CDB, PDB concept. It's a one database instance and one database, one-to-one mapping. So in 12C, Oracle has came up with this multi-tenant architecture. Then there's a two architecture now. In these three versions, Oracle has given option in 12C, 18C, 19C. While creation of your database, you can go with a normal database architecture, meaning one database versus one instance. Or you can go with a multi-tenant architecture, one database instance with one CDB database, inside that multiple pluggable databases, kind of a virtual databases. So Oracle has given an option to choose which one you want to go with this in this three version, 12C, 18C, 19C. Right, and then meaning single instance, single database, that's a normal database architecture. Single instance, single database, that's CDB. Inside that, there's a virtual databases, PDBs, that's a multi-tenant architecture. And starting with the 21C, 23C, 23I, and also the latest version 26AI. If you go with any one of these versions, always it's a multi-tenant architecture, no normal database concept at all. Single instance, single database called CDB. Inside that, you can run your number of databases up to 250, 256 PDBs, 256, 256 or 52 PDBs. You can run it one single CDB. You can run your dev, test, UAT, pre-prod, prod, all of them into one CDB. So to align your other database architecture. So that's the Oracle future focus. So it's all our responsibility. Like we need to learn this multi-tenant architecture and then up to date in the market. All right. And then what else? So hope that's clear so far. Any questions here? Other database versus Oracle, how the architecture looks, and CDBs and normal database architecture, how it looks, and your basic Oracle architecture here. Right. And little bit, few more concept I'll cover it and I'll wrap it up. My database, before that, let's go here. Okay. My database startup and shutdown. Whether it's a rack, standalone database, or multi-tenant database. So if you want to start your database, you're gonna always follow a typical startup sequence. From shutdown, you're gonna start from shutdown to no mount, from no mount to mount, mount to open. This is your typical database startup sequence. And in this startup sequence, from shutdown to no mount, you'll read the SP file or we have a P file. From shutdown to no mount, you're going to read the SP file and P file. You're going to go from shutdown to no mount. That's your database instance will start from shutdown to no mount. From no mount to mount, we have something called control file. You'll read the control file and you'll go to mount mode. From mount to open, your database will get opened. So that's what we saw here. Database instance is started in no mount and your database is got mounted and your database got opened. Where is that? Right. From mount to open, it'll read all the data files
And
and
all
all
the
the redo log files.
redo log files and data files also. No.
Yes. So in the open mode, you're going to read all the data files and the redo log files and your database will get opened. This is your typical database startup sequence. Once your database is instance is started here, your instance is mounted here, and your database is your database is mounted here and database got opened. When your database is got opened, then only end users can connect to my database and they can access the data files, read, write, and insert, update. They can do whatever you want. So your database has to be in open mode. If your database is not in open mode, then no end users are allowed to connect. So if any of these files are missing, let's say I'm going to start my shutdown to no mode if these files are not there. Your database instance will never start. Here your instance will start from shutdown to no mode. Here your database will mount and here your database will get opened. So if you don't have a control file, your database instance will start here, but your database will never get mounted if you don't have a control file. And if you have a control file, your database will mount. And if you don't have data files or you don't have redo log files, your database will never get opened. So what is this SP file and P file? First of all, SP file is a binary file and P file is a text file. You're going to define your instance properties. What is the instance? Go back here. What is this instance? Instance is your logical structure, which is combination of your memory and background process. You're going to specify in this SP file or P file, what is my SGA, what is my PGA, and where are my control files? What is my instance name? What is my database name? All those database related and instance related properties, you're going to define it and then you're going to create a file. And you're going to start that one and you're going to start it in the no mount. So if I can quickly take a look on that one, I'm going to kill one more time. So I'm going to kill this instance again. One of the background process, mandatory background process called smon. The moment I kill that one, your instance will be crashed. Instance is crashed, meaning nobody can connect to your database. Now let's check it out. Nothing is running. I'm going to connect to SQL plus DBA. My database instance is not started. I'm going to do now startup, no mount. I'll go from shutdown to no mount mode. You're going to read this SP file and P file and you're going to start your database instance. Right. Your database instance is started here. If you see, it has allocated memory and started the background processes. So now the memory structure is allocated SGA, PGA, some background processes. And then background process, if I want to check the background process, PS-EF grep, my database name, DB. So you can see all those background process. You have PMON, mandatory background process. You have log rater. You have a DB rater. You have a checkpointer. And you have SMON. These are your mandatory background process. And other than that, these are like MON, MMNL, your job queue, recover. These are like your non-mandatory background process. If you kill this non-mandatory background process, this process ID, those will be automatically get restarted. But whatever the mandatory one, if you kill it, it's gonna crash your instance. Fair enough. Now you started your database instance. I can do select instance underscore name, comma status from $v instance. Right? My database instance is started. Started meaning no mount. It started with the SP file or P file. I can do show parameter SP file. I'll bring it in one single line. Right? It has read this SP file. U01 app Oracle product 19C DBOM DBS SP file dvdb.org. SP file is a binary file. P file is the text file of that. So again, you can create a P file from SP file from P file. All those how to create and all we'll take it in a regular classes. But I have started my database instance using the startup no mount. It went from shutdown to no mount by reading that SP file. And my instance gets started here. Instance gets started meaning it has allocated the memory and it has assigned the background processes. Right now, after that, I'm going to do alter database mount. I'm going to do this alter database mount. It's going to go from no mount to mount. By reading the control file, it has mounted my database. If I do select name, comma open underscore mode from with other database, I'm checking my database now. Earlier I checked my instance. Now I'm checking my database. My DB database is mounted. In order to mount, it has to read this control file. I can say select name from $, control file. We have two control files, two copies of control files. This is called multiplexing of your control file. In case of one control file is corrupted, you have other control file where you can just copy it and run your database back online. If you both the control files are corrupted, then you have to restore your control file using your RMAN backup or any other method. Even if you one single control file is enough to run your database, but keeping multiple copies is called multiplexing because we know that control file is also a binary file, which is a called heart of your database because control file knows everything about my database. When my database is created, what is my database name, what is instance name, what is archive log, where are my backups, where are my redo log files, where are my data files, many more things. What is the checkpoint information, what is the SN information, and all those information will be there in your control file. And because of that control file, we call it as the heart of my database. And keeping a multiple copies is the best practices. That's called multiplexing of your control file. Now my database is able to read the control file. That's why it is able to mount it into mount mode. And now from the mount, I'm gonna go into open mode by running this alter database open. My database got opened. In order to open my database, it has to read all the data files. It has to read all the read log files. If the data files, online, this read log files, we call it as a online read log files or just read log files. You can call whatever name. It is able to read the data files and read log files, then only it is able to open it. If any of the read log files are missing, any of the data files are missing, my database will never get opened. Select name from $, data file. These are all my data files. It is able to read these data files. Select member from $, log file. That's your online read log files. Right? It is able to read all the data files. It is able to read all the online data log files, and then only your database got opened. First, your instance will get started from shutdown to no mount, reading the SP file and P file. Once your instance is started in no mount, from the no mount to mount, your database will be get mounted. From mount to open, your database will be get opened. And for that, you should have this SP file, P file, your control files, and data files and log files, which are must. And if you don't have any of these files, you will not be able to start your database. If you don't have data files and log files, your database will be never get opened. Maximum will go to mount mode. If you don't have a control file, your database instance will get started in no mount. And if you don't have this SP file or P file, your instance itself will not get started, and your database will be never get mounted or opened. Right, this is your typical startup sequence and the backend files: SP file, P file, control file, data file, log files, which are at the backend storage level. You can literally go to that location and see it. So if I go to this online log file, LSFNLTR, you can see all those log 1, 2, 3. If I can go to this fast recovery area, LSFNLTR, you can see all those. Again, these are called read log multiplexing. Read log 1, read log 1, read log 2, read log 2, read log 3, read log 3. It's a duplicate copies, multiplexing of read logs. How this multiplexing of control file, two control files, same copy of control files, same way, same copy of read log files. Again, read log files are very, very critical to recover your database using the latest transactions or any point in time. The read logs are must. All the transactions will be held in these read logs. So because of that, we'll be maintaining multiple copies, because one copy is corrupted, you will have another valid copy. Great. So that is your redo logs. You can go to that location and see it. Same way your data files. You can go to that location. Wait a minute. Give me a second. Right. Yeah, you can go to that location and see these data files. And similarly, you can go to this Oracle Home DBS location. You can see this SP file, which is physically available. So underlining your whatever these physical files are very much needed for your database to get started and your database to function properly. Is there anything other than these files? We do have other than these files to manage or maintain your database. Not needed for your database to start. Your database to start, only these files are enough. SP file or P file and control file, data file and log files. If these files are available, you can run your database and which works fine. Other than that, we have other files. One is your archive logs. Archive logs are nothing but copy of your read log. Right, your archive logs are copy of your online read log. Whatever the read log files, if this read log 1 is full, my database will start writing into another read log, and then my archive or background process will copy this as the archive log file. These archive logs are needed for your point in time recovery. Point in time recovery. Again, we'll talk more on that redo logs and how this log writer is going to write it. So if I bring this one, you'll understand more. My end user one is connected to my database instance and he's doing some transaction. Those transactions will be written into my online redo log, online buffer cache, and my log writer will write those content of log buffer cache to online redo log one. When this online redo log one is full, this is a 200 MB. In my case, it's a 200 MB. When this online redo log one is full, my log writer will start writing into online redo log two. At the same time, your archive or background process will copy that redo log as the archive log files. Right? It's just a simple overview here. In regular classes, we'll discuss more on this architecture part. But that's other files, what you can see it. Your archive log files are copy of your redo log files, which will be kept it in a separate location for the point in time restore. I want to restore my database 1 hour back. I want to restore my database as of yesterday 9 a.m. For that, your online redo logs, so your archive redo logs are must. Without archive redo log, will not be able to do a point in time restore. And then other files at the backend. Okay, my server is down. Let me start it again.
Mallikarjun, sorry for my disturbance. I have a small doubt. Can I ask?
Yeah,
Shall I ask?
good.
No, Mallikarjun, Redulog will be fine. No, it automatically switch will be happen. We need to manually switch the other Redulogs.
Again, we'll discuss in our regular
Mallikarjun.
classes. So when this log
Okay.
writer,
No, no, just I have doubt.
no, there are certain conditions. When this log writer will start writing redo log one, and when it's going to switch it from redo log one to redo log two, there are certain conditions. Whenever this log buffer is 1/3 full, whenever every 3 seconds, my database instance will trigger that log writer to switch it every 3 seconds. Whenever any checkpoint occurs, whenever any data files goes down, or whenever any table space goes down, or whenever your database shutdown command initiated, all those certain scenarios, your log writer will switch that redo log files, will start writing into new redo log. Yeah, those are your answers. There's not one or two, there are like 7 or 8 conditions.
Okay.
All right, so quickly, my data files, these are my data files. How we saw our online redo log files, these are our data files. And at the same time, these are your control files, two control files. I have one control file under Vara data. I have one more control file under fast echo area. If I go to this location, ed, so I have this control file one. And if I go to this second location, fast echo area, I have one more control file for the same database. Again, it's a multiplexed control file. Same copy, we kept it under two locations. Right, that is your control files and your SP file. If we can go to this location, right, and then, sorry, CD, DB home, DBS, SP file, devdb, SP file, devdb.war. This is your LSF in LTR, my bad. So this is your SP file which will be read and your instance will be get started. So then let's connect to database one more time. Devdb SQL plus slash s SDBA. So I did mention this archelog. Archelog are nothing but copy of online read log files. Whenever this online read log one is full, my log read will start writing into read log two. At the same time, my archive background process will copy that read log one as archelog file. So I can do archive log list. By doing this archive log list, you'll be able to know whether your database is in archive log mode or not. It clearly says here my database is in no archive log mode, meaning my archive logs are not getting generated. So here my log writer will write on redo log 1. This redo log 1 is 200 MB. When this 200 MB is full, my log writer will start writing into redo log 2. Again, this redo log 2 is also 200 MB. When this redo log 2 is full, my log writer will start writing on redo log 1. It will want to erase that old content and start writing the new content. Because your database is in no archive log mode. There's no archive log it will going to generate. And that we can clearly see here by running this archive log list. And will not going to generate. So right now log switch 52 happened. 52 archive log supposed to be generated, but we don't have those 52 archive logs because your database is no archive log mode. Your log rate will be overwritten those read log files. Again, we in order to put your database in archive log mode or no archive log to no archive log or no archive log to archive log. Right now, let's say no archive log mode to archive log mode. I want to convert my database. For that, I need to shut down my database and shut immediate and startup no mount and alter database mount and alter database archive log and then alter database open. Right, earlier we did a startup no mount instance will be goes into no mount. We're going to mount the database. In the mount mode, you have to convert your database into archive log mode. Once you convert your database into archive log mode, you can open your database. So I'll just do first startup no mount. Right, started and alter database mount. Only in the mount mode you can convert from no archelog to archelog to no archelog. Your database in archelog mode and you can open your database. Right now you can run the same command archelog list. It says your archelog mode is enabled. And it says your archive destination. Where are your archelogs? It is in recovery destination. You do show parameter recovery. It says your DB recovery file date. This is your archelog location. If I do dev DB archive logs and with the today's date. So right now we don't have any archive logs. I'm going to do one manual log switch. I'm going to manually tell right now your log data is writing under log 1. I'm going to tell log data boss stop writing on log 1, start writing on log 2 by manually running this command alter system switch log file. So I told my log writer boss stop it on the log 1 where you are writing, start writing it in on log 2. So now the archive or background process will start copying this content of log 1 whatever written as archive log files. If I exit from here and this is my archive log location and if I do ls-ltr and you can see one log file got generated 54. That's your 54 was the log current log where my log writer was writing on this 54 and then I told stop it, start writing on the other log and then the archive log got generated 54 here. All right, so that is your other files. So at the back end, what all the files we saw in order to list out SP file or P file, the physical files. After that, control file. After that, data files. After that, redo log files. After that, archive log files. And then these are your must. Mandatory to start database or run your database. SP file or P file, control file, data file, redo log file. These are must file needed to start your database or to run your database. And these are like non-mandatory. So non-mandatory archelog. This is not a mandatory must file. Even if you have archelog, no archelog, your database continue to run. And then we have password file. Password file for your remote connection, sys DBA remote connection. One of the mandatory intro question, what is password file? Why we need that? Sys DBA remote connection. We need a password file. your prod and DR sync, you need a password file. One of the interview questions, what is the password file? Why we need it? Your answer should be, these are the two purposes. Since DBA want to connect your database remotely, you need a password file. Your DR database has to be in sync with your prod, then you should have a password file. Whatever the production password file, you have to copy it on the DR side. Right, this is your non-mandatory files. And also we have diagnostic files. We have a lot of diagnostic files. Diagnostic files, the name itself suggests diagnostic. In order to manage, maintain your database, you need these files. What are those files? I'm just going to list out. Very first thing is your alert and your trace and your TRM files and your dump files and your incidence files. In case of anything crash happens or anything abnormal activity happens on your database side, you're going to generate in alert log, trace files, dump file, instance files. With that, you can track it out. And also you can have your export dump files and you can have your rman backup files. Right? Those are your non-mandatory, but as a DBA, we need to understand all of this and we need to manage all of this. So every day we are taking a backup. Every time we do export and import for logical object like tables and schemas. And these are all your diagnostic files. Like I can put them into other files here. Other files like export dump and armand dump. These are your diagnostic files. Anything abnormal activity happens or your database instance or database crash happens, you need to take a look on these files. Administrative files. And your password file and archive files are non-mandatory and which are needed for point-in-time recovery and remote connection. And these are must files for your database to start and up and running. Hope that's clear. Any questions so far? Hope that is a high level what I wanted to cover it. And when we start the regular classes, when we start with architecture part, then we'll cover more in details. All right. So with that, I'm gonna wrap it up now. I'm gonna stop it for today. So before we stop, any further questions? Anyone has it?
Sorry for my disturbance, Mallikarjun. Where we can refer this recording, today's recording? Can we refer in YouTube or maybe
Yeah, in
you
YouTube
people
I
are
can
need to
upload
send
it.
the link?
Yeah, I'll upload it in YouTube. You can check it over.
Why means once again we can go through this recordings right now. Yesterday's and today's. Yesterday I am not able to connect the session, but today I have
Yesterday's
connect.
I
So
uploaded
this,
into YouTube. You can watch it there, or you can ping me my WhatsApp. I'll share the details. Yesterday's and
sure.
today.
Why means once again we can go through all these recordings and we will get some idea. Maybe
Yeah.
tomorrow if we have anything will be happen, we can need to update all those things. We will be updated now.
Yeah.
Uh,
So right now, again, if I go back here, um, yesterday I covered this one. Maybe you missed it. Only these
yeah,
are the
yeah,
two
yeah.
demo sessions. Yesterday and today, 20 and 21st,
Okay,
two demo sessions which we just now conducted. Our actual class is going to start on 3rd November.
okay, okay,
So
okay,
we have 2 weeks now. Next Monday to next Monday. The 3rd November is the
okay,
what we're going to start the actual classes. So you
okay,
have a 2 weeks of time. You can have any questions, queries, or anything you need to clarify. You can always feel free to ping me on my WhatsApp or cell number. I can assist you further on
okay,
that.
okay.
All right, guys. With that, let's take a break. Happy Diwali, everyone. Enjoy your festival. We'll get connected in
Thank
our
you.
regular
Same to
classes.
you, Mallikarjun.
All right.
Okay, okay, okay.
All right, guys. Let's take a break. Thank you. If no question, let's wrap it up. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, 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 okay. Thank you.